We have with us on the broadcast Lieutenant General Satish Jua is joining us. Major General Dr. Gigi Dwivedi is also with us. Jaydev Ranade, member of the National Security Advisory Board, also on the broadcast with us. I also have Ashish Singh, the Strategic Affairs Editor of the ITV Network. And I take the opportunity of inviting in to this broadcast the President of the Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Sangay, joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Sangay, thanks very much for sparing your time. Let me begin this telecast with a quick conversation with you. As you are observing things of what has been happening in Ladakh, are you concerned at all that the incremental nature of the Chinese approach that eventually impacted Tibet may be resurfacing?
Actually, we've been saying for the last 60 years, what happened to Tibet could happen to India and all the neighboring countries. And what you see in Ladakh, it's a repetition of what happened in Tibet 60 years ago. It's the incremental approach, it's the leadership co-optation, and slowly, steadily, they make all the intrusion, and soon you realize that your country is gone. So we have been a victim of China's occupation of Tibet. So the lessons that the India and the leadership of India should learn is by closely studying the issue of Tibet.
Dr. Sangay, at this point of time, for viewers who are watching this, what is the situation in Tibet, in Lhasa?
Now, there is political repression, cultural assimilation, environmental destruction, economic marginalization, and all kinds of human rights violation. As you know, more than 100 Tibetans have committed self-immolation, burned themselves. That demonstrates the desperation and determination of the Tibetan people, that they are protesting against the occupation of Tibet. They're saying occupation is unacceptable and repression is unbearable. That's why they're burning themselves and committing self-immolation.
How much of the infrastructure China was building in the railways and the roadways that we know they've done, and now they want to expand that into Kathmandu, as I know you're aware, how much of that has already happened?
This One Belt, One Road initiative, which is now expanded to all over the world, we have been the first victim. Because initially when China built one road connecting China to Tibet, they said this will bring prosperity to Tibetan people, you will benefit from this. And in fact, we Tibetans helped build those roads, and our parents and grandparents were paid in silver coins. And we sang a song. Chinese Communist Party is like a kind parents. They shower you with silver coins to help build a road connecting China to Tibet. Soon, that road paved the way for Chinese trucks to come, Chinese tanks to come, Chinese guns to come. That's how they occupied Tibet. Now the railway line has come, 30 airports have been built, 6 major airfields are being built. Now all these roads from Tibet are connecting to Nepal, Ladakh, and all the neighboring countries. Railway line will follow soon. So this is the experience we have witnessed for 60 years.
How advanced, Dr. Sangay, is the demographic change of getting in ethnic Han Chinese into Lhasa, into Tibet?
That has been their policy. Late Penche Rinpoche submitted 70,000 characters petition in 1962, 3 years before the Cultural Revolution, in which he said population transfer of bringing Han Chinese people to Tibet to marginalize Tibetans in their own country was practiced in the 1960s. Now, fortunately, at the moment in Tibet, in urban areas, Chinese tend to be majority during summer. But in winter, many of them return and go back to China. So in winter, Tibet is still Tibetan majority. And this is not the case simply of Tibet. If you look at the Southeast Asian countries, this is like 20 years old data. In the neighboring countries of Southeast Asia, they have built 300 plus high schools to be taught in Chinese language. Now, there are more Chinese in Kathmandu than Tibetans in Nepal. So the population transfer and migration of Chinese all over the world, including in Tibet, is part of the cultural assimilation and part of how 1.4 billion Han Chinese tend to migrate and dominate and marginalize the Tibetans and other minorities.
What is your
so-called
understanding, Dr. Sangay, of the difficult developments that many people globally are reticent to comment upon on what has been happening with Uyghurs in Xinjiang?
You know, when Tibet was occupied, we've been making this noise. The human rights violation of Tibet should be a concern of the international community. The whole world said Tibet is an exception, what's happening to is wrong, but we can do business with China, we can have normal relationship with China. Now in the last few years, when they saw more than 1 million Uyghurs were put in concentration camps, the security law and denial of right to freedom of speech in Hong Kong, and the interference in Taiwan, you can clearly see Tibet is not an exception. You're dealing with a regime and a system which is systematic and sophisticated in undermining freedom in the neighboring places, now all over the world.
You mentioned,
so this has been our experience.
And let me pick that up. You mentioned the other developments. The other immediate development, of course, is taking place in Hong Kong. How are you viewing that?
Now again, what's happening in Hong Kong happened in Tibet before. So Chinese line of slogan is this: Hong Kong is part of China, Tibet is part of China, Taiwan is part of China, Ladakh is part of China, but coronavirus is not part of China. Now in broad daylight, Communist Party of China is capable of misleading people. We all know that coronavirus originated in China. And everybody says so, and more than 130 countries have passed a resolution to investigate the origin of coronavirus. But Chinese government in broad daylight says, no, it's not us. But the rest of the countries and the nations which do not belong to them, they claim that,
okay,
it's theirs.
Let me ask you then about Taiwan, because the situation there has been very difficult. Now, many people are saying that, look, with the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party coming up next year, that this is what they're doing it for.
Yes, I think Taiwan could be a flashpoint. Ladakh could be a flashpoint. China has been interfering in Taiwan for so many decades. The democratic process being compromised, interference in election is part of the game plan. Now, Taiwan has performed so well as far as dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. But then Taiwan was a member or affiliated with WHO till 2016. But given their recent performance on coronavirus pandemic, they should be affiliated with WHO, but the Chinese government says no, they will not participate. So this is the bullying tactic or the strong hand tactic of the Chinese government all over the world, and we Tibetans have seen it, experienced it for the last 60 years.
What do you make of the bill in the US Congress for free Tibet?
Two bills. The one is by the Congressman Scott Perry, supporting the independence of Tibet, and we welcome any support, be it on religious matter, or environmental, or human rights matter. But there is another bill. It's called Tibetan Policy and Support Act, which was passed in the US House with 392 votes in support of the bill, which is 95% of the House. Now the Senate Foreign Relations Committee is debating it, and once they put in the vote, then it will come to the floor of the Senate. If that passes, then if President Trump signs it, it becomes a law. So this is a major, comprehensive, detailed policy act for Tibet. On the other hand, the support for independence of Tibet, it's a show of solidarity by a congressman, and which has to move the US House of Foreign Relations Committee, which hope it will pass.
How frustrating is it, sir, that when the world winds change and suddenly China's front and center, the voices of Tibet suddenly are heard again, and in the interim period are often ignored? How frustrating is it?
No, you don't. We are Buddhists. We don't go by, frustration. We go with equanimity. This is a struggle. The term struggle is apt. It's a struggle on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. As long as you are at it with your movement, with solidarity with Tibet inside Tibet, our movement will be strong. So sometimes the international wave will come and support you. You don't get too carried away. Sometimes the international wave will not support you. You don't lose your heart. That's called equanimity in Buddhism. So that's our goal. As long as you believe in your cause, you fight for it, you will reach your goal sooner than later.
Will any Tibetan, in your view, sir, ever accept the leadership of a Dalai Lama that China wants to choose?
Absolutely not. The Communist Party of China has zero credibility when it comes to religious matter. 98% of the monasteries and nunneries were destroyed. 99% of monks and nuns were destroyed. Even now, they interfere in every religious matter. And they call themselves an atheist regime. So if they don't believe in religion, why are they interfering in it, right? Given their track record of destroying our monasteries and nunneries and vilifying and calling names of His Holiness Dalai Lama, and who is revered by the whole world, and with such credibility, they have no role whatsoever on reincarnation of the Dalai Lama.
What message would you send, sir, to the people of Nepal, as you well know, that the road building activity to link Lhasa to Kathmandu is reaching an advanced stage? Railway lines might follow next.
I don't know how much people or the government of Nepal will listen to me, but it's for India to consider. Nepal is the only other Hindu country in the world. Now the government there is leaning more towards Communist Party of China than the Delhi Darbar, right? And then Tibetans there are suffering. Their basic human rights are denied under the influence of the Chinese government. And like I say it here, we also tell to the people of Nepal that we have suffered. We have first-hand experience under the occupation of China. Repression of Tibetans continue even today. So they came with sweet words, some kind of proposal to peacefully liberate Tibet. It was a violent occupation, and Tibetans continue to suffer now. Learn from us, Nepal, India, and rest of the world. Sooner the better for you.
Well, I hope in our lifetime, sir, you get the opportunity to visit or go to the place which is photographed right behind you. Thanks very much, Dr. Sangay, for putting a emotional but straightforward point of view of what is actually going on and your assessment for it. We wish you the best. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.